This question about how do you differentiate appropriately and what you've added on to that, how do we tread carefully and gently around a student's self-concept when it relates to differentiation? It's tricky. I'm going to say the first thing, which is that there's just not one way to do it, right? Say, for example, in some cases what you'll do is you'll just make sure the task has built into it the fact that students can enter the task and participate in it at different levels based on their own knowledge and ability. And so you're not singling anyone out, you all just get the same task. In fact, spoilers, you know all the activities that we actually did, that I did with you during that seminar? They were all tasks of that type. So all of you would have engaged with it at a different level. And you know, some people are looking to dig down deep and try and solve why the problem can't be fixed, or what's the way to prove that this is the result and not just get an answer. Everyone will engage with it at a different level if the activity is designed so that there's multiple access points, I guess you might say, right? But that's not the only way to do it, right? Say, for example, mathematics is a subject that tends to be learned independently and individually. And sure, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but we miss a huge asset in our classes if we never let them work in groups together. So for example, in most of the classes that I teach, I have my students in small groups of 3 or 4. And those groups, yeah, sure, sometimes, particularly in senior classes, I'll just let them sit wherever they like with their friends, but particularly junior classes, I engineer those groups, right? I take time to learn who my students are, and then I think, okay, well, I have a seating plan, and I say, you're not just going to sit anywhere. I want you to sit with this group for this intentional purpose. I want you to sit at the front of the room because I want to help you to focus more easily, which at the back of the room is more challenging for you, right? And I want to spread that, and I want to design that process, right? So there are tasks which enable that much more easier than others. So for example, do you remember some of the activities I gave you? I know we're all from different tutorials and stuff, but some of them were you play against someone else in a game, right? And I love these because they're so easy to use, and there's always a little extra bit of intrinsic motivation because you just want to beat your friend, right? However, it's really not that hard to take virtually any activity that's like that, 1v1, and make it more accessible to a broad range of people, which is to make it 2v2. Same game. It's just that now there's 2 of you trying to work out what move we should do next compared to 2 other people. Now what's great about that is not only like it's hitting like 4 birds with 1 stone. I don't know why we're obsessed with hitting birds with stones, but anyway, not only are you making that more accessible to a student who, if they were one-on-one, it's like me and Tony's just going to destroy me every time because I'm not very good at this game, right? But if it's me and Jess versus Tony and Bianca, actually like Jess will help me and I will ask questions that actually will help Jess now has to explain, which pushes her to be more sophisticated in understanding because she has to communicate now, which she wouldn't have to if she was just playing against Bianca and just winning, right? So these are ways that we can make tasks and activities more accessible. And I will always say to my students, Richard Feynman said when he was talking about physics and trying to understand these deep ideas, he said, you do not understand something truly until you can explain it simply. And many of your students will be convinced, they'll be persuaded, yeah, I understand this, and it's only when you get them to stand up in front of a whiteboard that they realize, oh, I don't know this as well as I thought. And so you can actually see differentiation is not just about the students who are struggling, it's both ends, right? It's always both ends at the same time, bringing them into one group that can learn together. One final note on that. There's another school of thought about differentiation, which has a lot of, there's a lot of validity to it, but you'll see why in a second. I don't sort of go all the way down this rabbit hole, which is basically to say the best way, if it's possible, if it's physically possible, to differentiate in a classroom is to give every single individual student a tailored, individualized experience of learning, right? Now, generally, the way people do this is by, say, for example, I might have different versions of a task, right? I might have 3 versions of a task, like an easy, medium, and a hard, right? Textbooks will often try and have some version of this, right? Like they grade the questions as you go, right? You can also use technology to do this. So a lot of the tools and platforms that are out there, their attraction is that you and I can be sitting right beside each other, but it responds to what I get wrong and you get right, and then hands us a different experience, right? Now there's value in that at certain times, right? But the thing that I think is missed and that we all experienced throughout COVID is that this lovely phrase that I read in the research once, which I think captures it. When we take a completely individualized path through learning, we miss the collective effervescence of learning together. It's a really powerful phrase, the collective effervescence of learning together. So when it comes to differentiation, the main thing that I think is actually not to treat people as just an individual who it's like, my goodness, I've got 30 of them and they all need something very different to each other. That's okay, because we're actually a learning community. We're a web of different relationships. It's not you in the center and trying to, be the hub to all these different spokes, which is impossible, basically. You're actually there to orchestrate the experience of how the class learns together, and that's how you can effectively differentiate.